You ever call any rodeo in your day, Arash? You've kind of done everything.
I have not. One of the few things I haven't.
I love it.
I've been to a few goat rodeos, I'll tell you that much.
There's a fella named Greg Buchanan. Do you know him?
Lloydminster.
Lloydminster.
Yeah.
And that's what he does now. He's a rodeo announcer.
Yeah.
And doing very well at it.
And you got to be good. The rodeo announcer, the rodeo music guy, I learned last year, there's a lot that goes into it. And then, of course, the bullfighters, not to be confused with the clown. The bullfighters, that's it. I can't wait to get down there. We're doing the show live Wednesday, Thursday, Friday from Agribition. Come say hi. Brought to you by Ritchie Brothers Auctioneers. They're in the International Trade Center, booth 113. Okay, Arash, Jeremy O'Day. And year-end media availability today. You were there listening to it online because I don't think you're still in Regina. If you are, I'll be disappointed. We didn't go for breakfast.
I saw you several times in Regina, but you're at a distance. One time you're going to the stadium pre-game, and you looked confused. You were looking at different papers, trying to figure out.
That was him walking from the casino.
That's my resting face. There's always confusion.
And then your mother, by the way, would have been very pleased because I was behind the Husky bench sitting in the crowd, and there you were. Who would have believed it? Hydrating in the first quarter in November in Regina. And I thought, your mom will be happy because you're hydrating. And number two, who would have thought you'd have to hydrate and drink water in Regina towards the end of November at a football game? But you were doing a good job hydrating.
I was hydrating before we got quite dehydrated after the game, Don. That was just advanced planning.
Attaboy. That's the Regina, right? As soon as you touch down, you better get it in you. You know where I watched the Vanier Cup? Big guy?
Where did you watch?
Bellied up to a certain bar in Winnipeg, Manitoba.
Silver Heights?
You know it. You know it. Cold ones were flowing, had a little rib platter.
You have to have the rib platter.
Jazz band Saturday afternoon going on behind me. It was packed. It was so fun. Okay, we could talk about the Vanier do you want to talk? Let's start the Vanier then, and then we can get into O'Day. I find it unfortunate because I'm watching that game, and we can go, wow, Daniel Wee was injured. He couldn't cut. He had turf toe. You've ever had turf toe or anything near, you can't. How's this guy even doing it?
So painful.
Anton Ammanrud, unfortunate, not there, banged up. And then I just felt, Arash, the Carabins, Montreal was they were so physical. They do have an older bunch, right? Because they can play. I don't know what that league's called or whatever. They're an older.
It's like a junior league. Yeah, I forget what it's called.
And you can play. I don't know if you can play your 5 years there and then go. It's kind of how Sasky used to be, but they just seemed a little bigger, stronger, and the Huskies were beat up.
Yeah, and I found by the fourth quarter, 5 minutes into the fourth quarter, the Huskies just were worn down too. That physicality from Montreal at the point of attack. We talked about it early in the week, Barney. That's, it's a one-score game. And then Montreal ran something like 8 plays, 48 yards, and took up 6 minutes of clock. They just wore them down, scored the add-on touchdown to go up 2 scores, and that was it. But it was the defense that didn't allow a touchdown in the second half, with linebackers aged 25, 24, 24, with a pass rusher who's 25, with a back-end guy who's in his mid-20s. Mm-hmm. I thought on Saturday the better game day roster was Montreal's, and you just wonder, Weeb with the foot, and Riker Frank, the all-time leading, touchdown rusher in school history, he was banged up, and he didn't practice all week, like in a load management style type game. It's just it felt like the Huskies just ran out of gas.
And you know where it was evident, and you watch a lot of football, Don, Arash, you watch a ton, you were covering it, is where I noticed it is when Huskies tried to run a screen and it just got blown up. And then when Montreal would run a screen, they would just out physical because it was just a grindy, it wore on the dogs. And it was just unfortunate because, again, you get there and it's a Quebec team. Now, do you think that they could change that rule where they're not, it's similar to the other? I don't know why Ontario, the West, and Atlantic is not shouting from the rooftops being like, this isn't fair.
So I went to university in Quebec. The school system in Quebec is you graduate high school in grade 11, and then you go to something called Cégep. Cégep is almost like supposed to be a 2-year preparatory kind of program. And some of these guys will then go play 3 years of Cégep. So they'll be freshmen at age 20. So,
which is Gonzalez was, yeah.
Gonzalez was a bunch of that, which is why you're 25 as a senior,
Yeah, kids.
So, and that's the biggest thing is that, in the pros, okay, you're a 23-year-old going up against a 28-year-old. That's one thing. But if you're an 18-year-old going up against a 25-year-old, that's a totally different deal.
Yeah, good point. That's exactly right.
But also, a 20-year-old rookie quarterback lit it up for Montreal. Like Pepe Gonzalez was the National Rookie of the Year. He was legit. He had real weapons all over the place. From a second-year kid, Enrique Jean Leclerc, who's legitimately in his second year in university. He's got some seniors around him. Montreal was just a better roster on Saturday, and they played better.
I think Gonzalez could be CFL bound if he puts on some weight. I mean, the strength of his arm was definitely, without question, CFL caliber. But, I'm looking at the last 4 years of the Vanier Cup, Arash. So Laval's won it twice. Montreal's won it twice. So unless some of this changes, I was telling a few people in Canada West this the other day that are just friends. I said, unless this changes in the way it's set up, I mean, Laval and Montreal are clearly stronger teams on the field than anybody else in Canada at the moment. I thought you're going to have few and far between Vanier Cups for Canada West, folks.
Well, yes
changes.
And no, Don. No, I don't know about that. I'll push back on that from a couple of standpoints. One, and look, if ands and buts were candies and nuts, what a Merry Christmas would be. I get that. But if Sask comes in healthy, if Sask has its quarterback, if Sask has its first-round pick not in a walking boot every single day of practice since the semifinal of the Canada West playoffs, talking about Daniel Weeb, I don't know why they call it turf toe. They should it's destroyed foot is what they should do. If you're watching on the stream, Daniel Weeb's right foot was in a boot for 6 3/4 days of the week. He doesn't even come out for the early part of warmups. Just before kickoff, does he come out to run around a little bit after it's been shot up, and then he goes and plays. Don, that's a 4-point game at the half. It was a competitive football game. Last year, Laurier did not give up a touchdown to Laval in the Vanier Cup. And the Rouge et Or still won. So, sometimes you got to tip your cap. The other thing is, Laval and Montreal are powerhouse programs with powerhouse fundraising, with powerhouse corporate donors who are in Quebec where the arms race right now for recruiting is at an all-time high. I think teams are really close. Now it's just a matter of figuring out how to do it. And Quebec has set the standard, and everybody else has to up their standard. And I tell you, the Huskies are right there. Now, if you can't beat them, join them. So now it's time for everybody else to kind of step up, I think, across the country to get that last little step to be right there on Vanier Cup Saturday.
I just don't know to your point, I guess, if you can add 2 or 3 years, it just seems like that is, especially on the line play. Some of those.
Yep. But Barney, 4 of Montreal's offensive linemen this year were first-year guys. They had 1 vet, their left guard. Their left tackle, first year starting. Their left guard, their center, first year starting. Right guard, first year starting. Right tackle, first year starting. So we can get into the weeds on it, but we're now at a time where McGill's cutting sports. My beloved Bishop's University team is out of the AUS back into Quebec. Schools are just. I admire the schools that want to be competitive. I admire the University of Regina. I admire University of Saskatchewan. I admire Laurier for seeing what's happening in Quebec and saying, all right, this is what it's going to take to compete with the big boys. Let's go do it. And I think now more than ever, Canadian university football is more competitive than it's been at the top end. And these other schools are close. They're just not there yet.
You know, a shutout about Seth Hundeby, the linebacker for Saskatchewan. What a steal the Rough Riders got in last year's draft. He's Defensive Player of the Year in U Sports Football, 34th pick in the 4th round. He's 6'2", 251, and can run. He's from Saskatchewan. And the Riders, you know, you think, oh, he must have gone real early in the draft. The Riders get him in the 4th round. They've done it again. They've done it again. They've got a stud later in the CFL draft.
You know, Don, this is... So Seth Hundeby wins the President's Trophy as the National Defensive Player of the Year this year. And I talked to 2 CFL executives through Vanier Week, and they said that Hundeby probably last year would have been a 2nd or a 3rd round pick, except he told all the teams that he was going back to school to finish his engineering degree. Right. He was going to go back for a 5th year. Mm-hmm. And so if you're a GM, sometimes you're like, okay, well, am I going to invest a 2nd or a 3rd round pick into a player who my successor is going to have success with? Right? I'm not, I want guys here now. Whereas the Riders look at it and they're like, well, here's a homegrown guy. We'll wait for him. You know, we came close. We'll wait for him. Look, if I'm the Riders, Riker Frank, he runs inside zone. He can play almost every special teams for me. I talked to Riker this week. He says, I want to keep playing football. I think Riker Frank would be a great priority free agent signing for the Riders. Went undrafted last year. Cost you nothing, literally, but a dorm room and a cafeteria card.
He lives.
Why not?
His parents still. He's from Regina.
Yeah, La Boldis.
I love it. That's a really good one. Yeah. What did you take away? Okay, so just moving to the O'Day thing today. What did you take away from that?
I saw Jeremy on the sidelines before the game. I only had a chance to chat with him real quick, and we were just about to go on air. And I said, is it, offered congratulations. I said, is it joy or is it relief? He smiled and he said both. And I said, probably more relief, huh?
Yeah.
That press conference sounded like somebody who's like just a deep exhale. For a minute, the pressure cooker's off. I loved his answer to the question when somebody said, has anybody come in and said they don't want to be here? And he's like, we just won the Grey Cup 5 minutes ago. Like, leave me alone.
Yeah, that's right.
But something got in his craw, and it has to do with the Toronto Argonauts. And I like what O'Day did, and I see what O'Day did, because if the Toronto Argonauts, and remember, Corey Mace was the defensive coordinator in Toronto before coming to Regina. If the Argos reached out to Mace without permission from the Saskatchewan Roughriders, without formal permission, that, by rule, is tampering. Now, I'm not saying...
Absolutely it is. Absolutely it is.
I'm not saying, Don. I'm just saying. I don't know if the proper protocols were followed. I don't know if the paperwork was filed. I don't know if the conversations happened. But you know how this league works, that people talk and people are in touch. What exactly happened there, I'm not sure, but I can see how O'Day could be perturbed, and I can see why he would bring that up in a press conference.
Well, I mean, Ryan did what he said it all. He wanted out, and he's leaving the Argos as the head coach, going to Ottawa as a head coach and general manager, and he says, I will have less work to do, which made no sense other than there's, as Luke Mullender said a few weeks ago from Winnipeg, there's something going on. He thinks the Argos are a mess, Luke Mullender said 2 weeks ago. Like, what is going on in Toronto? Because I don't know. Is it dating back to how they handled Chad Kelly? Is it because they're moving out of their stadium in the World Cup, nobody wants to do that? Or what's going on there, do you think, Arash?
Their roster is horrible. They have not had a scouting department. They have not had a player personnel department for 3 years.
That's a problem.
Yeah. And guys just keep leaving. Vince Magri left at the beginning of training camp in 24, not replaced, went to the Buffalo Bills. And it's now caught up with them. And I've said it before, the general manager of the team couldn't name you half the players on the roster. And they sided with Michael Clemens and John Murphy instead of Ryan Dinwiddie. He was like, cool, I'm out then. And look, this is what's telling. If you asked the 5,000 college football and pro football coaches across the continent what they would do for a pro head coaching job, they'd give up a limb, most of them. Yeah. Now look what's happened over the last little while. Everybody's saying no to the Argo job. O'Shea said no. Steinauer said no. Mace has said no. I mean, O'Shea interviewed. I don't know if Steinauer's interviewed. It's just their in-house guys so far who've interviewed for the position. People you're in a major market with a lot of resources, and people aren't interested.
Isn't Shires in there too?
Maybe. That in itself is saying a lot.
So Ryan Dinwiddie worked his ass off like you wouldn't believe by himself and won a Grey Cup.
No.
He did it all on his own.
No, Don.
No?
No, Don. He won 2.
Oh, that's right.
Right.
And then
he did it all by himself, and he won 2 Grey Cups.
He went to Ottawa, got things done, and changed his number. It's like, how come you haven't called us back? And they're calling like, new number, who dis?
This
It's crazy, but this is the one thing about sports, and you know this, Arash, about me. It's like, can we just break it down to real life? If you were applying for a job at a hotel and you heard that there was 6 people that said no to it, they don't want to work there, and you're probably going to go, where that? It doesn't matter the profession. Yeah. If you're in a position to go work someplace and you know that people have turned down that same job, and there's probably some inside baseball that people are talking about, there's an issue.
So let's talk about the hotel job.
Sure. I love continental breakfast.
There you go. Okay, well, who's gonna make the breakfast? Well, we don't really have anybody to. Well, who's in charge of the IT for the computer system? Yeah. We don't have an IT person. Where's the janitorial and the custodial services? Yeah. Well, we don't have that either. Well, how am I supposed to be your front office manager of this hotel?
I think I stayed at that Days Inn in Winnipeg before.
Viscount Gord.
No, Viscount's the COVID museum. The Days Inn airport is the sketch. Yeah, there's something not right. You were in with Dave in this chair in the studio last week, and you were talking about Chad Kelly. For those that may have missed it.
So this to me is interesting, guys, that Chad Kelly is going to be healthy next season. Chad Healthy is going to return to play football next year. To me, where is still very interesting. And this is what I mean by that. Chad Kelly's cap hit for next season, based on his contract that is registered with the league, I sourced this out last week when I was in Regina, is $625,000. That includes housing, that includes Barney's favorite marketing money, that includes the partridge in a pear tree. Okay? So the cap hit $625. But on February 1st, Chad Kelly is owed a bonus of $225.
Oh, that's real money.
So if Chad Kelly is going to remain in Toronto, we will know on the first day of February, because they got to write that check for $225. Is Chad Kelly on the trade market, perhaps, for an Argo roster that's in tatters and you got to rebuild, etc., or not? I don't know, but what I'm telling you is we're all going to know by the first day of February where this is. And if I'm Chad, I do not restructure. I do not agree to a pay cut. I do not ask for a trade, because here's what happens. If the Argos don't want to pay him that money, they either have to trade the contract, and they won't want to trade him to Ottawa to Ryan Dinwiddie, or they release him, and then Kelly becomes a free agent a couple of weeks before free agency begins league-wide.
And he gets to go to the Days Inn Winnipeg Airport. So I circled that all back.
And I get it. At the Silver Heights while staying there.
You're like a real Paul Harvey, and now you know the rest of the story. I love it. Okay, we're up against it here. We get to chat again on Thursday. I'll be live from Agribition. You should come to town for that. You should just hop on a bird and come in.
I was just there. I walked through all the cows and all the trucks on the way to Mosaic. We were staying at the Residence Inn right by the stadium.
Honest question. I know you had some Western pizza. Did you put some in the fridge for that late night little snack again?
You better believe it.
That's veteran. You're a veteran. Yeah. I love it.
I only went for the next day. I only had like a slice or two. But it was hot. I saved it all for the three mornings.
Attaboy. Yeah. You can live in Sasky if you know that move. You're good to go. Okay. We'll chat Thursday, bud.
All right. See you guys.
See ya.